I never imagined my mornings would be this quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet people crave after a long week, but the kind that sits heavy in the chest, like the air just before a thunderstorm. Every day, I wake up in my penthouse overlooking Manhattan. The city hums far below, but inside these glass walls, silence rules. My daughter, Lily, is 7. She's mute. She has never spoken a single word in her life. Doctors said it wasn't physical. Her vocal cords worked fine. Her hearing was perfect, but words, spoken words, just didn't come. I had the money, the resources, the best therapists in the country. None of it changed the fact that my little girl lived in her own world of silence. I built my empire brick by brick, one sleepless night after another. I became CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in New York. But in the end, none of my achievements mattered when I looked at Lily. She was my heart outside my body, and yet I couldn't reach her fully. Our communication existed in gestures, a tilt of her head, a tug on my sleeve. Sometimes she scribbled small notes with crayons, crooked letters spelling things like hungry or sad. Other times her big hazel eyes, so much like her father's, said everything. Her father. The word still hurt. I was widowed 3 years ago. A car accident took him away in an instant. He never got to see Lily's first drawings, never watched her twirl in the living room pretending to be a ballerina. I was left to raise her alone, carrying the weight of both mother and father while running a company that demanded everything. That morning started like every other. I brewed my coffee, strong and bitter, while Lily sat cross-legged at the kitchen island, clutching her worn-out sketchbook. She was drawing again, something with too many blue strokes, like stormy waves. She rarely smiled, but when she drew, her face softened. "Good morning, sweetheart," I whispered, kissing the top of her golden curls. She didn't respond, of course, but she reached out, holding my wrist for a brief second before returning to her sketch. That was her way of saying, "I see you, I'm here." The housekeeper had the day off, so it was just the two of us. I was grateful for that. Sometimes strangers made Lily retreat further into herself. With me, she was comfortable, safe. But then came the sound that didn't belong in our carefully curated silence. A knock. It startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. My meetings didn't start until noon, and security rarely let anyone pass the lobby without clearance. Yet when I opened the door, I found myself staring at a man I'd never seen before. He wasn't polished like the executives I usually dealt with. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his hair slightly messy like he had been rushing. He held a small toolbox in one hand, a folded paper in the other. "Good morning, ma'am," he said, voice warm but cautious. "I'm here to check the electrical issue in your unit. Building management sent me." I frowned. I hadn't reported any issues. Still, something in his eyes, an honesty I couldn't quite define, made me step aside. He entered quietly, his gaze flickering briefly to Lily at the counter. She froze, clutching her crayon tighter. Most people tried too hard with her, forcing smiles, pushing words she would never answer. But this man didn't. He just gave her a small nod and returned to his toolbox. I should have ignored it. He was just a worker here to do his job. But I couldn't shake the way Lily looked at him, her head tilted, curious, almost hopeful. And then it happened. When I stepped into the living room to grab my phone, I heard a soft sound behind me. Not a sound exactly, but something that made my heart stop. Lily's sketchbook slid to the floor. She was staring at him, her hands moving in deliberate motions. Sign language. And to my utter disbelief, he signed back. For a moment, I thought my eyes were deceiving me. Lily's little hands were moving quickly, fingers forming shapes I only half recognized. I had tried to learn sign language before. Every book, every online course. But balancing CEO life and motherhood meant I never became fluent. I knew the basics. Yes, no love, hungry. But what Lily was doing now, it was far beyond me. And he, this stranger with a toolbox, was responding just as fast. His hands moved gracefully, confidently, as if sign language was second nature to him. I stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, my heart pounding in my ears. Lily's eyes, usually so guarded, were lit up like I had never seen before. She was laughing, silently, but her whole face glowed. Lily was communicating. With him. When he finally noticed me watching, he paused, almost sheepishly. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I didn't mean to intrude. I I noticed she was signing, and I responded. I stepped closer, struggling to keep my composure. You know ASL? He nodded. Yeah. My daughter is deaf. We've been signing since she was a baby. A daughter. The word caught me off guard. Somehow, in the space of 30 seconds, this man had gone from complete stranger to the only person who had ever reached my daughter in a way I couldn't. Lily tugged at my sleeve then, signing something quickly. I caught one word. Friend. She's asking if it's okay, he translated gently. If it's okay for me to be her friend. I blinked hard, suddenly fighting tears I didn't want him to see. My daughter had never asked to be anyone's friend. She always stayed behind me, hiding from the world, uninterested in the children of my colleagues or the forced playdates I arranged. And now, here she was, asking about him. I cleared my throat, regaining my businesslike tone. What's your name? Ethan, he said. Ethan Cole. Single dad, electrician, and apparently your daughter's new friend. He gave a half smile that was both charming and disarming. Something twisted in my chest at those words. Single dad. I studied him closer. He looked nothing like the men I usually dealt with. Sleek investors in tailored suits, polished board members who smiled through their teeth. Ethan had calloused hands, a faint scar on his forearm, and an authenticity about him that was almost unsettling. Lily, meanwhile, had completely forgotten I was even there. She had hopped off the stool, pulling out another crayon to show him her drawing. He crouched beside her, signing and nodding, his whole attention focused on her world of blue waves and uneven lines. I didn't know whether to be grateful or afraid, because in just 10 minutes, this stranger had managed to do what I couldn't in 7 years, unlock my daughter's joy. I forced myself to remember why he was here. You said building management sent you? He stood, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, I work freelance. They told me someone in 27B had flickering lights. Must have been a mix-up. I narrowed my eyes slightly. So you just showed up? No ID check? No security clearance? Ethan raised his hands in surrender. Hey, I get it. You don't know me. But I'm not here to cause trouble. I can leave right now if you want. Lily immediately shook her head, clutching his arm. The desperation in her grip broke me. She didn't want him to go. I was torn between instinct and emotion. Everything about my CEO brain screamed, don't trust him, too sudden, too convenient. But the mother in me. The mother saw her daughter's eyes shining for the first time in years. Fine, I said finally, my voice lower than I intended. You can stay, just for a little while. Ethan gave a grateful nod, but there was something else in his eyes, something he wasn't saying. And deep down, I knew. This wasn't just a random mistake. His presence in our home meant something. I just didn't know yet if it would save us or destroy us. I've built my entire life around walls. Not the glass walls of my penthouse, not the marble ones in my office, but the invisible walls that kept me in control. I had to. When you're a woman running a billion-dollar company in New York, weakness isn't an option. Every smile has to be measured, every word calculated, every move a step ahead of someone waiting to see you fail. And yet, here was this man, this complete stranger, casually breaking through those walls in less than an hour, with nothing but a pair of kind eyes and a fluency in my daughter's silent language. I watched Lily lead Ethan into the living room, her little hands moving rapidly, signing faster than I'd ever seen her do before. She was telling him stories she had never told me. He sat cross-legged on the floor, toolbox forgotten, responding to her with the same patience and ease I wished I had. Every so often, she would pause to grab another crayon and draw something on her sketch pad, then hold it up proudly. He treated each crooked line like a masterpiece. And all I could think was, why him? Why now? I sank into the armchair across the room, sipping my coffee, though it had long gone cold. My chest tightened watching them. It should have been me. I should have been the one to pull her laughter out of hiding. Instead, it was a stranger with rough hands and a tired smile. He caught me staring once. Instead of looking away, he held my gaze like he was trying to read the thoughts I worked so hard to bury. Then he turned back to Lily, giving her his full attention again. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. So, I said sharply, you're an electrician, but somehow you also happen to know fluent ASL? That's convenient. His jaw tightened slightly, but he kept his tone even. Not convenient. Necessary. My daughter was born deaf. If I wanted to be part of her world, I had to learn her language. The words hit me harder than I expected. If I wanted to be part of her world? I had tried, of course I had. But had I tried enough? Or had I let board meetings and deadlines steal the hours I should have spent learning to speak with my daughter in the only way she truly understood? I forced my voice steady. And where is your daughter now? With my sister, he said, a shadow crossing his face. She helps out when I'm on jobs. My little girl's 5, smart as a whip, but she's been through a lot. There was weight in his tone, a heaviness I recognized. I wanted to press, to ask more, but before I could, Lily tugged my sleeve again. She was signing quickly, then looked between us with an eager smile. What is she saying? I asked. Ethan hesitated, then chuckled softly. She's asking if my daughter can come over and play sometime. The words nearly unraveled me. My Lily, who had never asked for playdates, who shrank from other children, was asking to meet someone new. I nodded slowly, my throat tight. Maybe one day. Ethan gave me a small, understanding smile, but I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. He wasn't just a man with a daughter. He was a man carrying battles I didn't know yet. When he finally stood to leave, Lily clung to his arm again. He bent down, signed something that made her beam, then gently pried himself free. At the door, he looked at me. I know I wasn't supposed to be here, but thank you for letting me stay. I should have ended it there. Closed the door. Gone back to my perfectly planned life. But as I watched Lily wave silently at him from the living room, something inside me cracked wide open. And for the first time in years, I was terrified. Because I had a feeling Ethan Cole wasn't just passing through our lives. He was here to change them. The next morning, I told myself it had been a fluke. Ethan showing up at my door, Lily's sudden burst of joy, the way he had slipped so easily into her world. It was all just a coincidence. A twist of fate that had no business repeating itself. I had meetings to attend, deals to close, shareholders to reassure. My life had no room for unexpected strangers. And yet, as I poured my coffee and glanced at Lily, I couldn't shake the memory of her smile. The way her hands had flown through the air like she'd been set free. That night she had drawn picture after picture of a man with kind eyes, scrawled in bright colors across her sketchbook. Ethan. I told myself it didn't matter. People come and go. I was enough for her, I had to be. But children have a way of piercing through every defense. That afternoon, while I sat at my desk reviewing a contract, Lily came into my office with her sketchbook. She climbed into my lap, silent as always, and tapped the page. It was Ethan again, him and Lily, side by side, signing to each other. Above them, in her crooked handwriting, she had scrawled a single word, please. I don't know what possessed me in that moment, guilt, desperation, or maybe just the ache of wanting to see her happy again. But I picked up my phone, stared at the unknown number Ethan had scribbled on a scrap of paper before leaving, and dialed. He answered on the second ring. Hello? His voice was cautious, like he wasn't sure who it would be. It's me, I said, hating how uncertain I sounded. From yesterday. There was a pause, then a warm chuckle. Didn't expect to hear from you. Everything okay? I looked at Lily, her eyes locked on me with that unspoken plea. My chest tightened. She wants to see you again. And your daughter, if possible. He didn't answer right away. I could hear the hesitation in his silence, then, she'd like that, but are you sure? Was I sure? Absolutely not. But I found myself saying, yes, come by tomorrow afternoon. We'll have lunch. When I hung up, I told myself it was just for Lily, just to give her something she'd never asked for before. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. The next day, when the doorbell rang, Lily sprinted to the door before I could stop her. She practically pulled Ethan inside, and behind him stood a little girl with dark curls and curious brown eyes. This is Mia, Ethan said gently, resting a hand on her shoulder. My world. Mia clutched a small stuffed rabbit, her gaze shy but not unfriendly. Lily stared at her for a long moment, then raised her hands and signed something. Mia's face lit up, and she signed back. The two of them disappeared into the living room within seconds, giggling in the silent way only they could. I stood there, dumbfounded, while Ethan watched them with quiet pride. "They'll be fine," he said softly. "Kids always find each other faster than we think." I crossed my arms, studying him. "You realize this is highly unusual, inviting strangers into my home." His smile was faint but sincere. "Maybe, but sometimes the unusual is what we need most." I wanted to argue, to remind him that my life didn't run on maybes. It ran on certainty, strategy, and control. But when I saw Lily and Mia on the floor, trading crayons and laughter, I swallowed the words. Instead, I found myself saying something I hadn't planned. "Stay for lunch." Ethan's brows rose slightly. "Are you sure?" No, I wasn't sure of anything, but I nodded anyway. Because a part of me, the part that had been buried under years of silence and grief, was beginning to wonder if fate hadn't just knocked on my door once. Maybe it had walked right in, toolbox and all. I've hosted some of the most powerful men in New York at my dining table. Senators, investors, billionaires, they've all sat across from me, glasses raised, conversations sharp as knives. But that afternoon, as Ethan and his daughter Mia joined us for lunch, the room felt different, warmer, lighter. The girls sat together, trading crayons and sketching while picking at their grilled cheese sandwiches. Lily never ate this quickly with me alone. She was too often lost in her thoughts, distracted by silence. But with Mia signing beside her, she chewed and laughed with her whole face, the kind of laughter I had almost forgotten existed in her. I found myself watching them too long, until Ethan's voice drew me back. "You're good at this," he said, nodding at the perfectly arranged table, the silverware aligned just so. I gave a small, practiced smile. "I've had practice. Entertaining is part of my job." "Running a company that big must take everything you've got." I stiffened slightly. Most people spoke of my company with awe or envy. But Ethan's tone wasn't either. It was curiosity, maybe even concern. It unsettled me. "It's what I do best," I replied crisply. "I didn't get here by accident." "I don't doubt that," he said, holding my gaze. "But sometimes, giving everything to one thing means you've got nothing left for another." The words stung more than I wanted to admit. I looked away, pretending to adjust my napkin, though the truth burned in my chest. How many times had I come home late, too tired to sit with Lily? How many times had I chosen strategy meetings over bedtime stories? Ethan didn't press, though. He just let the silence settle. Well, the kind of silence that wasn't empty anymore, but filled with the gentle movements of two little girls signing across the table. It was Mia who broke it. She tapped Ethan's arm, signed something quickly, then pointed at Lily. "She's asking if Lily can come to the park tomorrow," Ethan translated, his lips twitching with a smile. The question was innocent enough. But parks meant people, exposure, unpredictability. I never took Lily to public spaces unless it was necessary. Too many stares, too many questions. Before I could answer, Lily grabbed my hand and signed her own plea. Her eyes shimmered with hope I couldn't ignore. I swallowed hard. "We'll see," I managed, earning a grin from both girls. Lunch carried on, but beneath the surface, something darker stirred. Ethan spoke easily, sharing small pieces of his life. How he fixed wiring for offices downtown, how Mia loved painting sunsets, how money was always tight, but they managed. He didn't complain, though. Not once. It wasn't what he said that unsettled me. It was what he didn't say, the shadows behind his eyes, the way he hesitated when I asked about Mia's mother. "She's not in the picture," was all he offered, before quickly steering the conversation elsewhere. I didn't push, but the air between us shifted. And then, just as I started to relax again, the intercom buzzed. "Ms. Clark?" The voice of my building's head of security. "We need to speak with you immediately. It's urgent." My stomach dropped. I excused myself, stepping into the hallway to answer properly. "What is it?" There was a pause on the other end, then a careful, measured reply. "The man in your unit, the electrician, he doesn't work for us. We have no record of sending anyone to your floor yesterday, or today." For a heartbeat, the world tilted. I turned, staring back into my dining room, where Ethan was laughing softly as Mia and Lily scribbled across the table. He looked so genuine, so harmless. But the voice in my ear sent a chill down my spine. If he wasn't who he said he was, then who exactly had I let into my home? I've negotiated billion-dollar mergers without breaking a sweat. I've stared down rivals in boardrooms who would kill to see me stumble. But nothing rattled me the way those words from security did. He doesn't work for us. I stood frozen in the hallway, the receiver pressed to my ear, my heart thundering in my chest. "Miss Clark?" the guard asked again. "Do you want us to send someone up? We can escort him out right now." I should have said yes. Every instinct screamed it. But when I looked back through the open doorway and saw Lily, her small hands flying in the air, her laughter silent but radiant as Ethan watched her with the kind of tenderness that couldn't be faked, I couldn't bring myself to say the words. "Not yet," I whispered and hung up. I walked back into the dining room, every step deliberate, my CEO mask firmly back in place. Ethan looked up, smiling, and for the first time I wondered, was that smile a lie? I sat down, forcing calm. "Ethan," I said evenly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Yesterday you said building management sent you. Security just confirmed they didn't. So tell me, who are you really?" The color drained slightly from his face, but he didn't flinch. He set down his fork, glanced at Mia, then back at me. "You're right," he admitted quietly. "I wasn't sent by management. I lied." Lily's hand froze mid-air. My chest tightened. "I should leave," he continued, "but please, just let me explain first." I wanted to call security, to slam the door on whatever story he was about to spin. But something in his eyes, raw, almost pleading, held me still. "Explain," I said coldly. He exhaled, rubbing his palms together. "A month ago I was hired to do electrical work in this building. I saw you once, in the lobby, with Lily. She was drawing in her sketchbook. I noticed she wasn't speaking, and I recognized the signs. She was just like my daughter." My breath caught. "I knew who you were, Miss Clark. Everyone knows your name. I thought about approaching you, offering, I don't know, help, a way for Lily to connect, but I chickened out. Then when I heard about the maintenance mix-up yesterday, I saw an opening. I thought if I just knocked, maybe, just maybe, fate would let me through your door." The room was so quiet I could hear my own pulse. "You lied your way into my home," I said, my voice razor sharp, "into my daughter's life." "Yes," he said without excuse, "and I'm sorry, but I swear to you I meant no harm. I only wanted to give Lily what I've spent years giving Mia, the language she deserves, a voice." Lily tugged at my sleeve, signing furiously. Her face was desperate, insistent. Ethan translated softly, never looking away from me. "She's saying, don't be mad. He's my friend." My throat burned. Mia crawled into her father's lap, clutching his shirt like a shield. "Daddy?" she whispered, her tiny voice fragile but audible. The sound startled me. She wasn't mute, just deaf. Ethan kissed the top of her head, then looked back at me. His eyes were steady, unguarded. "You can throw me out, call the cops, whatever you need to feel safe. But don't shut me out of her life. Not when I know I can help." I stared at him, torn in two. The CEO in me wanted to sever the moment cleanly, cut off the risk, regain control. But the mother in me, the one who had spent 7 years begging the universe for someone to reach her child, saw something else. Not a liar, not a threat, but maybe, just maybe, an answer. For a long moment I didn't breathe. The room felt smaller, the walls pressing in as Ethan's words hung heavy between us. He had lied his way into my home, into Lily's life. I should have been furious, terrified even. But then I looked at my daughter. Her small hands tugging at me, signing with urgency, her eyes shimmering in a way I'd never seen before. She wasn't asking for toys. She wasn't asking for comfort. She was asking me not to take him away. I felt something inside me crack open. I stood pacing the room, every instinct at war. I had spent years protecting Lily from the world, shielding her from pitying stares and the kind of loneliness no child should endure. I had built a fortress around us, money, power, walls of glass and stone. But all it took was one stranger, one single dad with calloused hands, to step into that fortress and show me that maybe, just maybe, I had been protecting her from the wrong thing. Not the world, but myself. I turned back to Ethan. "You put me in an impossible position," I said, my voice tight. "I can't just trust someone who lied to get in, but—" My throat caught. "I can't ignore what I saw in her today either." His eyes softened, hope flickering through them. "Then let me earn it. Don't trust my words. Trust what Lily shows you. If I'm not good for her, you'll see it. But if I am—" He swallowed hard. "Don't take that from her." I glanced at Mia, curled up in his lap, watching us with wide, knowing eyes. She didn't need to hear the details to understand what was at stake. Children always understood more than we thought. And Lily, my Lily, placed her sketchbook in front of me. On the page, in shaky but determined handwriting, she had written one word: family. That was it. The moment my walls came down, I sank into my chair, covering my face with my hands. For years I had carried the weight of silence, grief, and loneliness, convinced that strength meant never needing anyone. But strength, I realized now, wasn't about being unshakable. It was about opening the door when someone knocked, even if they didn't come the way you expected. When I finally looked up, my voice was steady. "All right, Ethan, you stay, but this time, no lies. You're here because I allow it. For her. For them." Relief washed over his face, but he didn't gloat, didn't push. He just nodded, quietly respectful. "Thank you." The days that followed weren't perfect. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. I kept my guard high, watching every interaction like a hawk. But the more I watched, the harder it became to deny what was right in front of me. Ethan wasn't just teaching Lily sign language. He was giving her courage. She signed more, laughed more, even scribbled notes for me to practice with her. And with Mia at her side, Lily blossomed in ways I'd never dared hope. One evening, after the girls had fallen asleep surrounded by crayons and half-finished drawings, Ethan lingered at the door. "You don't have to let me stay in your world forever," he said softly. "But thank you for letting me in today." I studied him, the weary strength in his shoulders, the honesty in his eyes. And for the first time in years, I felt something stir inside me that wasn't grief or loneliness. Maybe it was trust. Maybe it was something deeper. I reached for his hand before I could overthink it. "Maybe forever doesn't sound so bad," I whispered. His fingers closed around mine, warm and steady. And in that moment, with the city lights glowing behind us and the sound of two little girls breathing softly down the hall, I realized something I should have known all along. Love doesn't always arrive with fanfare or perfect timing. Sometimes it shows up uninvited, toolbox in hand, ready to fix the cracks you didn't even know were breaking you apart. And sometimes, you let it stay.